So, hello, people, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Tech of Tomorrow podcast. This is Sebastian Hidalgo, as you know, and as usual, please follow, subscribe, leave a comment. What else? Yes, leave a comment on YouTube, support the show. The more we grow, the better the guests, and the more exciting the guests, and the more I want to keep going with this. So, talking about guests, today is somebody who will teach you a lot, and his name is Tony Drummond. He is the founder at tokenomics.net, very cool domain, and of Convert, a creative agency for Web3 brands. So yes, today we will be talking about blockchain, crypto, and all those other topics you know nothing about and I know nothing about, which is why Tony is here. Hello, Tony.
Hey, Sebastian, thanks a lot for having me, man. Really appreciate the opportunity to get the audience more educated in Web3 and crypto. I understand a lot of people have various perspectives. Sometimes you hear a lot of scams and stuff on the news. The reality of it is there's a lot of amazing builders. It's incredible technology. I believe it will transform all areas of business, and I'm super excited for the opportunity to chat with you about it.
Listen, let's get right into it then. Would you like to give your audience a little bit of a background about your journey, how you ended up in Web3, in blockchain, and in crypto? Just tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm 42, so I have quite a career here in business. I've worked in every role. But in 2017, I got into crypto, just investing a little bit. And I really got deep into it when it started to rebound in 2021. I eventually started my own. I got into projects like these really smaller market cap projects, like really beginning introductory stages. And I just became really enthusiastic about early stage projects and working with the founders and being a contributor in these projects as a community member. And then before long, I decided to launch my own project. That project was a gaming project. We raised a small friends and family round. We didn't know what to expect. We launched it. It grew from a $550,000 market cap to over 207 million in 3 weeks. We sold 50,000 NFTs, and we had a community of 75,000 people. And that was insane. And so also shortly after that, then the bear market started. So I tell everyone up, I've been all the way up and I've been all the way back down. And so I really bring this like a holistic perspective to this space beyond just an observer on the sidelines, but as an actual builder. That's what I personally love to bring to new people, especially in educating them as they learn more about this space. I feel it's really important. There's a lot of builders that are unethical. They just chase memes and scams. And that's unfortunately a big chunk of this market is like the online casino gambling, but also it can create a bad perspective. And that's really what I try and emphasize with people is, what, there's a lot of really cool builders in this space, a lot of really ethical people that want to use the tech in the right way. That's why I'm excited to talk to you. And I got into tokenomics because that was the biggest challenge for me as a founder. I had to learn a lot. I had to change my whole economy while it was live. And so when I came out of this whole thing into the bear market, I decided to help other people in this area because I felt others might make the same mistakes I did. That's really why I started this direction. The creative agency was really a branch I had in addition to this, because after I did the tokenomics, people were like, I still want to keep working with you. Okay, great. So I started another company. And then now I have customers who work with me there too. So it's been awesome.
How how does it work? Because everybody can see how these crypto projects start, and then they amass this community behind them. And you did it yourself. You had 50K NFT sold. How does it work? How do you scale an NFT project to the point that somebody wants to pay attention to it, and to the point that then that somebody invites their friends, and this group of friends ends up becoming somehow a community of thousands of people?
Yeah. Yeah. The number one most important thing is people like a good pump, right? Like, so they like to see the project pump up, right? So if you like no matter what, if you take nothing other changes and you just started at a really high market cap valuation, people won't buy that. There's nowhere for it to go but down, right? So that's bad. So the first starting point is to make sure that you're going to the market with an opportunity, right? Because if you're not, then people aren't going to tell other people about it, not the opportunity. They're just not. They're not going to buy into this, right? So what you really need to do in the very beginning is come up with your idea. You're going to build a project. That's what we call it in our space, right? You might have a token with this, but you need to come up with a real product. It should ideally solve a real problem. And that problem should be painful for a group of people, right? So it's much like a traditional startup where you're going to come up with your token. That's going to be your utility. Like if you look at these AI softwares, like they use credits, they use tokens. That's how they charge you API fees, right? So look at it the same way with these tokens as a utility. You're going to build a community around that. These are the people that actually want to use the token, to use the product, But there's another piece of it you have to keep in mind as well. If you just promote to users, you're not going to get the speculative volume. And speculative volume is what drives the price and what drives the entire market. Like, why does everyone buy Bitcoin? Because we want the price to go up. I'm honest with that. I think most people would be honest with this, right? And so you have to realize that if you want to build a community, you need a group of users and your customers that love your product, that want to use the token. And you need to communicate that out into the market so other people can see that and become excited about it. And they'll tell other people about it. Those other people may be users, they may be speculators, but all of that is really what drives everyone together. So a community isn't just users, unlike most products. In this space, it's also the speculators, the people who are interested in the actual token and speculating on its future value, right? So that's a really important piece of it, like a step order process. It's very much like a normal startup type marketing, but it has that unique community spin, and you have to understand how to market. You have to understand excitement and hype and partnerships and volatility. You really need to know how to sell. So there's a lot of amazing things you have to know, but that's kind of the gist of it.
So it is exactly like a business, right? Because you solve a problem for an audience and then you communicate that you have the solution and they come. However, the difference I see is that cool sentence that you say, like, people like a good pump.
Yep.
Is that the key difference that determines why, for example, meme coins become successful?
Mm-hmm. It's all of it, because when you see something like a meme coin, they usually start off at really low market caps. Okay. And ideally, like if you take the tokens, not like a company stock, but look at it similar, and you divide those up, and most of those are held by the team, and the pumps up, and the team can just sell and make a bunch of profit. We call that a scam, right? So what people like to see with these early memes is the team doesn't do that. They put all the token supply out there for community to acquire, right? And they have something that's fun, entertaining, exciting to talk about. That's really important, because this is what's called the attention economy, right? This is a game of attention. That's what memes are. So when I'm buying a meme, like Payne, the guy, like the guy that did the whole me, I forget his name, but he did his own token recently, right? And so all these people bought into this thing. Why are they buying that? Because they think it's going to be exciting. A lot of people know that meme. I think his name is Harold. He's a guy with kind of like has that frown on his face type thing, like Payne, you know. So people are buying that because they know that meme has a lot of attention behind it, right? And so they'll try and get into that thing as early as possible. You might look at Trump. Like I saw that Trump one, it was nothing, right? That one went real fast. Why? Because people saw it was true. They know that this is going to be huge. A lot of people are going to buy this thing. So I want to be in early. And that's when you see people just dumping. I'm not kidding. You'll see people dumping 1 million, 100,000, 150,000 of these memes like that, right? And so when that pumps up now everyone is talking about it. Everyone wants to promote, and we call it shill for your own bags, like promote for your own bags. So everyone else is out there now. You got to buy this thing. You got to promote. And that's all the organic marketing that happens with these memes. A normal project that isn't a meme doesn't have that as much of those advantages, right? And so there's a difference between doing a real business in this space and having a token in a product and a meme. You know, memes are pure hype and attention, and they're massive gambling plays. It's like when you're in a meme, you know you're in a casino. You know, if you don't know you're in a casino, you're not really entering with the right mindset. You know.
So basically, when it comes to meme coins and shit coins, people just they get so excited that they become the project's marketing department. It extends, it spreads like wildfire. Then at some point, you hope they don't rug and pull it, and everybody goes broke, right?
Yeah. Let me tell you something. So there's also some, like there are some at the team rugs, and they do a rug pull, and they take all the money and they scam. Okay. Then there's also what's called a community takeover. So after that happens, you might even see the community. It says, hey, we love this project. We love this meme. Now we're taking the whole thing over. The developers are out. They've scanned. There's no more tokens for them to sell on us. Now it's perfect. We're going to take that over. And I've been parts of those, by the way. I didn't have my public face in there. But the reason why I would say that is now you're going to be out there. Like I would literally go on the microphone and start like a promoter. You're in here like shilling this thing. You're having fun. And people know it's a casino, right? So it's not like I have something I'm trying to dump on someone. It's actually like you're exciting in this thing. And that to me is what addicted me in a sense, is because I love the excitement, the attention around it, and how it's so random and inconsistent. You know, that to me made it so interesting to be a piece of it. But you'll see projects that will do that, and the community will actually take those over, and they become the mouthpiece of the project. And there's many of those that have come up. Like if you've seen Dave Portnoy recently had Jail Stool. Okay. So someone created Jail Stool. They sent it to Dave. And I think they rug pulled and scammed or whatever. Then Dave put in $100,000. Then Dave started promoting it. And then the thing went up to like almost $200 million in market cap in like less than a day from nothing. Okay, because Dave was promoting this. Dave was showing, hey, I'm buying this thing, and he's showing his transactions, what he's doing, right? So that's a great example of a scenario where someone made a meme, they scammed, and then the guy that they made it about, Jail Stool, Dave took that over and made it into something and grew it all the way to 200 million almost, and now it's down. Why? Because the attention on it is past, and that's how it kind of works. Is now people will be into the next shitcoin. It's a cycling play like that. Yeah.
It's fascinating. How do you recommend people get into this space, right? Because as we talked about already, I myself started into crypto because I invested in Shiba Inu. Not extremely proud of it, but meme coins are very attractive. How do you recommend somebody who wants to get into this without risking their money do it?
Yeah. So first of all, there's the obvious choices. You can just buy Bitcoin, not financial advice. You can buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, the larger cap. So go on Coin Market Cap and look at the top 10. And those are usually going to be some pretty good projects to bet on. Okay. Because they have a large market cap. There's a lot of money there. And so, yes, you will be volatile because you're in crypto. It's not uncommon to wake up and be down 10%, in crypto sometimes, so know what you're in for. Now, memes, those are usually like, let's say you find that boring, and let's say you want to be in early stages and you want to have more volatility. Well, that's where you chase memes like a Shiba Inu. The reason why I would say that is also kind of a good project to be into is what you're buying. You can understand it, right? And so you're buying something that's based on attention. It's a meme, right? And so you also know there's a lot of other people supporting that, so it could be a good bet. Whereas a meme that didn't have as much support wouldn't be as good of a bet. So what you're going to first do is choose a project, do a little research, and start to learn about it. Now you might buy a little bit about that. What you're going to do next is now you'll look for their Telegram chat or their Discord. Okay, that's where the community actually is. And so you'll get your Telegram, you'll go into the community there, and you'll be able to see people in real time talking about this project and showing the promotions of the project, right? The reason why you want to do that is now you're starting to become more educated on what's actually happening within the project beyond their social media feed, right? So that's the way I would recommend people get involved. And always with no more money than you're willing to lose. I started this space with just $2,000. That's all I've ever put into this. And I built everything off of that. All the companies I have are off the same amount. I've never put even another dollar back into this, So I believe you can start small as well. And if you think smart and you do your research and you pick some good, things with potential, then you have a chance, to do pretty well, but there's always that chance of scams and memes. And that's where you just look at it objectively and say, hey, this logo looks cheap. This site is from Fiverr, all this, so you have to have a taste about you as well. If you don't have that taste of quality, you need to develop that real quick. Otherwise, you'll pay for that with your wallet. So
I like that advice. So what other opportunities, because the underlying technology behind all of this is blockchain. So what opportunities do you see for normal people or for standard businesses in blockchain? Let's just first of all, for complete beginners, what is a blockchain?
yes. So a blockchain, imagine it's just a chain of data strung together, right? So when Bitcoin, it makes more Bitcoin when someone actually solves a mathematical problem. Then it creates a new block, okay? And within that block are all the transactions and all the data of what happened within that span of time, right? And so with blockchain, you can go back to the very beginning because as time goes on, we're just making more blocks in the chain and they're all connected. Okay. So if I were to say, like, let's say we have 10 blocks and I remove block 5, well, I change the chain and now it's no longer validated, right? And so now that data is no longer accessible and that would kill the chain, right? And so the blockchain is designed to make sure these blocks are always laid out. It always performs in a specific way. And there's a group of many different parties verifying the data to make sure we don't have manipulation, right? Like, so for example, if we have data that's inside of a database and I have access to it and go in and change it, no one knows. There's some logs and stuff, but no one would verify, hey, I manipulated the data, right? So when we talk about blockchain, what we're really talking about is almost like you don't have to trust it. You can verify it's real. You can see the transparency. I could see all the transactions happening on the blockchain. It's all public knowledge. It's really a public ledger. And that's what makes it so transparent and trustworthy, right? So when someone says, hey, I'm going to send you some Bitcoin, how do we know it's actually Bitcoin? Well, it's on the Bitcoin blockchain. I know it's real then. I can receive that in my Bitcoin wallet, right? Someone can't fake that, and that's why the blockchain is, that's how it's designed in a simple way to explain it.
What are some real life applications of the technology besides investing?
Sure. Yeah. So there's also stable coins, we call it in blockchain as well. So you have like USDT that's made by Tether, and that's one coin is essentially pegged to $1. So you have a dollar equivalent. Okay. Now, as a business provider myself, I had a problem where, all right, my vendor in the UK sent me an invoice, and this was in, whatever, QuickBooks or whatever. I pay that. Now, what happens is my bank actually, well, he gets charged a 2.8% or 2.7% cost for a merchant fee on paying that. So then they take that value. Then what happens to me, I noticed in my bank 24 hours later, I get charged the same fee for changing the currency for a currency exchange because I'm in the US. And so now we're talking, over 5% of value is lost. Now, let's take, and then by the way, that value is based on how much we're sending and we're paying. Okay. Now let's look at a different scenario where that individual was to get paid, like I did yesterday, in stable coins. He sent me the invoice in QuickBooks and he sent me his wallet. I looked at that. I sent him the stable coins directly from my wallet to his. It cost me less than $1 to send it, and it went over to him. He can cash that out right now into his bank account from his exchange, and now he doesn't pay hardly any fees. He strips that away. And me, as a business provider, I use a service called Beam, and I pay 0.5% on all fiat I'm cashing out from crypto. So now I can cash out with significantly less fees, right? And so as a provider, one use case is moving money around. It doesn't matter how much money you're sending, it's the same fee to do that. And that's also a really powerful use case. Now, if we looked at it differently, I'm a huge gamer. I've been an MMO RPG gamer for many years, So now one of my characters in World of Warcraft, his name, and when it first came out, his name is Tony. Okay, that's a hard name to get, really valuable, right? Well, what ended up happening is, I was in my 20s. I'm 42 now, like I said, so I don't have time no more to play the game, and I got out of it, right? So what ended up happening is I gave that account to a friend. Well, what if that character could have been an asset or an NFT on the blockchain, right? It's my character, it's on the chain, and I wanted to sell that to you, Sebastian. And you said, well, I don't know if this is really Tony. I can't verify that. Well, now you can. It's on the blockchain. It's really there. It's a token I'm going to send over, and it's verified, and it's on the chain. And now I can sell that or transfer that directly to you. And I have that level of transparency and trust. But I also have something of value I can use, right? Because truth be told, I put many hours into that character. It was a top rating character. I was the top PvPer on the server. A lot of achievements in there as well. All that is lost though, because now I just sent it over to my friend, and all that wasn't stored anywhere to give me that history of that character, right? So as we think about different use cases, the way I would also explain it is like in ticketing. You have the scalpers that just buy all the tickets, like to the Taylor Swift concert, they'll buy all the tickets and then they mark them all up significantly. Well, how do you know your real people are buying those? Well, you can make it so that way only a unique wallet can buy, and you can also enable it so now you need to have Taylor Swift NFT in your wallet to buy the tickets. Now, what do? I make it so now only her fans, her best fans, might access the tickets first. I can prevent all that from happening. So another way is I had one client that worked in when I was a consultant in operations was a cannabis company. Right now, they have to track from seed to sale where that plant evolves from. Now, they use a system called Metric to do that, but it's still a Web 2.0 database. Anybody can go in and change the records. So from a supply chain and transparency standpoint, how do I know what's in here and what's in the database is actually real? Who's monitoring that? Who's determining that, right? So I end up with scenarios where I might not be able to trust the data because it's not on the blockchain, right? But if that plant was like a digital NFT or an asset that was moving throughout different companies and different stakeholders, I'd be able to track that every step of the way. And that's where you see projects like VChain that are working in supply chain, where you can scan a QR code and it tells you right away all the back, how that whole thing was manufactured, where all the materials came from. It's a way to prove that, hey, was this actually made in Italy, or was it, they shipped in the leather into China, then they made it there, So it was Italian leather, but they put it together in China, right? This kind of a thing. So that's really the real world business use cases of blockchain are endless. And it really prevents that from, hey, I have to trust you. No, you don't. It's trustless and it's secure because of the blockchain.
That's fascinating because it really comes down to trust, right? Meaning
Mm-hmm.
it is about trust or it is about removing trust from the equation.
Yes, trustless, we call it.
Trustless.
Mm-hmm.
What about, can you explain what a smart contract is?
Sure. So a smart contract, so imagine you have a computer program, right? Now we're running a computer program right now with Zoom that's recording us, right? And so there's programs that are running, but we can't see the code. It's not open source. There's nowhere to look at that, right? And so a smart contract is basically a computer program you deploy on the blockchain, and then you'll basically give it some certain things to run, and then it'll execute those, or it might even execute on its own if you have a system that's automated. As an example, let's say we had a and by the way, smart contracts are what's called deterministic. So whatever goes into the smart contract, the same outputs come out. Okay. This is also really important because now we can verify through a distributed group of people or network participants. Like, let's say we had 1,000 people that were verifying the blockchain is real and it's true, right? And we ran a transaction on the smart contract. Well, all of the other ones would run the same transaction. They would have the exact same output. We'd be able to connect those two and say, yeah, this is the same. It actually makes sense. It's verified by the blockchain, right? That's the security we talk about. That prevents that manipulation. However, the smart contract will run exactly what you tell it to do, and it's all transparent. So let's say, for example, Domino's, here's the pizza place here in the US. They had a promotion at one point where if we're not there within 30 minutes, your pizza is free, right? So how might this be a smart contract? Well, I would put my money into a smart contract. And once I do that, it would start the 30-minute timer, right? And if, for example, the Domino's delivery guy did not transact on that contract and send his location, it would automatically refund me the money. I wouldn't have to call customer service and go through all this. So when you think about mediation and lawyers and attorneys and all these things that take place, we could prevent things with smart contracts that execute based on the rule sets that we've already agreed on. And that to me is what makes it also extremely powerful, right? So not only can we trust that the assets on the blockchain are real, but we can see the code. I can pull one up right now and show you the code of the smart contract. You can read all that. So that's also really valuable for people to verify that this program is doing what the team says it's going to do, right? We can audit that. That's also extremely important. But smart contracts can be used in a wide variety of use cases.
There was a lot of hype a few years ago about blockchain when it first came out, meaning when it first broke into the mainstream. Do you think that the hype has dwindled down? Is it about to have another prime season? Where do you see this going in terms of public perception and reception?
Yeah, I think like from an adoption curve standpoint, right? There's like that diffusion of innovations, it takes place. Got the book on my shelf here. It's quite a textbook. But that's where I kind of think about that perspective, right? You always have the early adopters, and now we are becoming more mainstream. So I believe like right now, hardly any of the world's money is inside of Bitcoin and these crypto assets. So I believe over time we will definitely see volatility. Bitcoin right now, it's down today a little bit, about 1%. That'll bring everything else down. But that volatility over time, if you just look at Bitcoin, it always tends to keep rising over time, right? Because more people get into it, it gets more exposure. So I believe we're on the cusp, especially with a lot of regulation here in the US, of essentially removing some handcuffs from a lot of people who are trying to build. And once people build and deploy and build better products, and they feel like they can actually do that without fear of getting sued, I feel that would also help the industry really explode. And I also feel it'll enable those larger players in traditional industries like to actually participate, right? Because that's also, if we think about the diffusion of innovations, there's that story in the book of the village in Peru where, hey, we're not going to boil our water because we don't believe in that. Only when we're sick, we should boil our water. And if we're not sick, we don't. And then now we drink germs and we get sick, right? It was only until the village elders communicated down after a lot of convincing in depth and health issues that people started to believe that. And that's the diffusion of innovation. So we need that first top party, a trusted party to participate. And that's why when we're seeing ETFs, we're starting to see the larger companies get into this space. That's where that will bring so much more trust to this as well. And that is also what I believe we're on kind of that curve in this cycle too. So I think with the ETFs, with the US regulatory environment, we'll see larger companies get into this stuff and using it and really not feel like it's as much of a risk, to their reputation and legally, and then I think we'll start seeing a lot more of that. Like how would Blizzard, a massive game company or Activision, whatever, get into Web3? They really want to make sure they've dotted all their I's. Their attorneys would probably be all over that. It's that type of a thing where we have to consider that. And once people get more comfortable through education and lack of in regulation that gives the rules and makes it more transparent, that's when I think we'll unlock a ton And that's where I think the space will explode even more than it is right now. That's why I'm in it every day. I think I'm still early.
I do agree. I think we are extremely early. Most people, the vast majority of the population, still has no clue about any of these things, which leads me to the question. Even in these conditions, Bitcoin has risen in value significantly. How high do you think it can get? Some people fantasize about Bitcoin hitting 1 million. Some people say we'll never hit 200K. What's your take on that? Also, will Bitcoin remain the prevalent, basically, brand of the industry?
Yeah, so I believe Bitcoin is the OG. Bitcoin is the store of value. Bitcoin is not the one that you're going to use to run a whole bunch of transactions and everything. It's the one you buy and hold. That's really what I believe Bitcoin is for. So it is that digital gold. And there's only 21 million that will ever be made, right? So as time goes on, Bitcoin has what's called that halving event, where each block in the chain, it, as time goes on, it'll enable the rewards to be half of what they were. So if it had 7 Bitcoin for one block, then after that halving event happens every 4 years, it'll be 3.5, right? So it cuts that in half and it keeps cutting it and cutting it and cutting it. So by default, Bitcoin should go up over time because we have less being deployed out there from a distribution standpoint, right? So if we have more people wanting to get into it, we think about this. So we have hardly anyone that's in it now, which is the truth from a money standpoint. Now we have scarce Bitcoin because of the halving events over time, and we have adoption rising over time. There's no doubt the price will rise. How much it can go to? I mean, I believe within the next 5-6 years, I don't think 1 million is out of the realm of possibilities if you look at this, So because we hit over 100,000, this current cycle, our all-time high was almost 110,000. Last cycle, it was 73,000, right? And our low was around 15,000, right? So if you look at the volatility, it goes up, it goes way back down, then it rises even more than it did. So I believe after this, pump, we'll see what happens. It's such a unique time with the regulatory and the adoption and the ETFs and all these huge funds buying this. It's so crazy. I can't even compare it to last cycles now because it's just so different than it was, but I believe it's not outside the realm of possibility, and I personally do not sell my Bitcoin because I believe wholeheartedly that Tony, when he's 65 in almost 25 years and he retires, it'll be worth more than it is today. And that's what I really believe that. I've told all my kids the same thing. And one other thing I'll say is, if we thought about it from a perspective of generational wealth and actually handing down something to our children that would grow in value, if we just distribute dollars, that loses value over time, right? But if we distribute Bitcoin, like if I'm holding my Bitcoin and I pass away and my kids get that, and let's say I have 3 boys and I have 1 Bitcoin, they each get 0.3. Well, at that point in time, it might only be worth $100,000, and then they each get 33 grand, right? Well, if they hold that over time, I know it's going to go even higher. If they held cash, it's not, so that's one thing I personally believe. The other thing I am scared about is quantum computing, because we've seen that with quantum computing, it might have the ability to actually break Bitcoin security. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I'm not a quantum computing expert or, I'm a crypto guy. I'm not a guy that knows like cryptography and studies all the algorithms and stuff with that. That's not my zone of genius. But that being said, I believe that is a risk to Bitcoin. It'll be interesting to see how, as computing gets more powerful, that the network is able to defend against some attack vectors like that.
So if quantum computing represented a massive security risk for the blockchain, do you think it would tank the value of
100%.
Bitcoin for good?
100%. Yep. Because your wallet is secured through your private key and your seed phrase, right? So if you have a quantum computer that can crack all the wallets, I mean, it just takes everyone's Bitcoin. So you need a way to prevent that. So yeah, it is significant, because not only will those crack the wallets and take the Bitcoin, but it'll probably sell the Bitcoin too. And then that'll be a lot of selling pressure, right? So it actually would be a major disruptive event. That would probably be like a catastrophic event. That would be one of those scenarios where the entire market would just literally evaporate, So I'm curious how quantum computing, how much of a risk that does become, because that is something that, as I mentioned, I want to be that 65-year-old man, someday with my Bitcoin. And I don't want some hacker to have taken it all through quantum computing. The good thing is it's also kind of out of reach, in many ways with quantum computing as well, right? So you need significant computing power and power in general, right, to do that, and technology and chips. There's a lot of barriers to this. So that does give me some semblance of, hey, this might not happen, but it is still a concern.
Or at least we are about a decade away from that because of all the technical complexity of getting access to even a quantum computer, let alone to getting quantum computing to the point that we can start using it to experiment like that, or anybody can, because it's a big word when it comes to quantum computing.
Yeah.
Do you think that, I see how the crypto market moves in these ebbs and flows of bull run and bear market? Is that a function of the fact that we are so early and will stabilize over time, or is it just the nature of how crypto works?
Yeah, what drives a lot of that is Bitcoin's halving event in many ways. So that's why you see these ebbs and flows like every 4 years, a lot of times, right? Like if we look at our calendar and you zoom out, you'll notice it. It is a common pattern. So I believe that does have an effect of it. I also believe it is an effect of just not having a whole lot of liquidity in the market in the early stages, right? It's a lot easier to move the price up and a lot easier to move it back down. So I do believe that as time goes on, without a doubt, as there's more liquidity and value, it'll be harder to pump up and it'll be harder to dump back down. So we will stabilize from a volatility standpoint. I don't think the price will stabilize because, like I said, it's just programmed to do this. It only will release 21 million coins, and there's like 19 million out now, and it has another like 150 years or something to release the rest. So it's like it's going to be a while for the rest of those are out. My whole point is, if you have that distribution is kind of cutting itself down over time, that's what's essentially being distributed that could be sold by miners and stuff. I do believe that as time goes on, we will keep rising. And I also believe we will reach a point where there's not as much volatility. At least I hope we will, because being down, like Bitcoin might go down 40, 50%. Okay. Like it might just go down that much. But when you look at this from a perspective of these altcoins, those things go down like 90 to 99%. Okay. So if you're holding some of those, man, you get destroyed, right? So the whole name of the game that is ideally you want to be in cash or Bitcoin, right? When the market starts to dump down, because your Bitcoin might go down. That's cool. If you hold that, it usually goes back up, right? But if you buy some of these altcoins and Bitcoin goes down, there's some that even when I first came in 2017, Tron was one of them that I bought, right? And Tron, I think, just recently made a new all-time high. That's like 8 years. I mean, so be holding that thing, and it's still hardly recovered, right? So my whole point is you want to know where you're at in this market. And ideally, in the times where it's more volatile towards the downside, that's where you want to be all in Bitcoin. When the halving event is like kind of starting to fire up and stuff, ideally you want to be starting to get into Bitcoin and in these altcoins and starting that accumulation so you can ride some of that up. The thing now that's been different about this cycle is there really hasn't been what's called an altcoin cycle. Okay, so usually every market, Bitcoin goes all the way up and pumps up, then it goes down a little bit and it trades sideways. Well, the people that made their money in Bitcoin, they start pumping that into altcoins, and then those things start to pump. After that happens and that dumps down, usually that's when the bear market begins. Now the party's kind of over, right? People made their money on Bitcoin. They made their money on altcoins. It's exhausted. And now people kind of, go their separate ways. And that's the normal kind of market cycle that we tend to see. So, but this cycle, we haven't seen much altcoin pumps. And I believe that's because of the shitcoins on pump.fun. They're all day long. There's these new things launching all the time. So all that is absorbing liquidity from quality projects in these altcoins. They're all going to garbage. So that's what's happening, really. This current cycle, quite different.
How do you think crypto will change the way we do transactions in the next 5 years? For example, there are some brands that are adopting crypto payments. Do you see we'll see more of that in the coming years? Will it ever become the prevalent method? And I have a follow-up question to this, but first, this one.
Sure. I believe within the next 5 years, definitely very reasonable, because in the initial stages, even just a few years ago, it was very hard to get the payment rails set up to be able to do this in an easy way, to on-ramp crypto, to pay in crypto, to go from crypto to your bank account. It took time, and it took regulatory hurdles, and it took teams getting their security right and getting the right certifications. That takes, sometimes a year to get a certification, so there's a lot of these things that teams had to go through to enable this. And so I believe now a lot of the foundation has been laid. There's a lot of good infrastructure that's out there, especially when it comes to payment rails. And you also see companies that are in payments getting into crypto, like Stripe as an example, right? They're getting into this for that reason. I think they realize that crypto will eat a lot of their lunch because, like I said, in the fees, as a business, why would I want to pay 2.7% of your to someone random just for collecting money? And that amount of money I collected, by the way, that's also linked to their fee. If I charge someone $1 million and I'm going to pay them, 7% of that. Why are you getting that? It doesn't make any sense. That would be smarter to pay literally a fraction of a cent in your transaction fee. And so I believe as time goes on, what we always see is efficiency, and reduced costs usually wins. I'll use Amazon as a great example. Jeff Bezos says it perfectly. Customers will want a vast selection. They'll want the cheapest price, and they'll want the product as quickly as possible. That will be true forever. And I believe the same thing is true with crypto and payments. We'll want to pay as little as possible in BS fees that they just take from us that's not adding value to our business. And if we have ways to do that in an automated way, then we're going to use that method instead, throw out the old way. I believe that will be the case. And especially as people become more comfortable and educated in this as time goes on, that's really what will help them get that trust of, hey, I can accept this stable coin. It's not just some made up thing, right? They understand it is something you can turn into value. It is real. It's not some hype thing. Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting world to see when we get there, right? And as more companies adopt crypto. The follow-up question to that was, are central bank digital currencies a threat, CBDCs, for people who unfamiliar with the uh,
Yes.
acronym?
Yeah. So what we're saying there is really a central bank has their own digital currency that you'll use, right? And so now if we thought about this, if I took $1 out of my wallet and I gave it to you, no one would know that happened, right? No one would know that. So when you think about the CBDC and why people are so upset over this, it's really enabling transparency in the way we don't want, right? That doesn't actually benefit us or help us. Yep, because now the government is able to track all the money wherever it goes, right? We don't need the government. Like, I'm a libertarian guy. I don't want the government in us. Get out of here. You're not adding any value to me, largely. So it's this kind of a mindset, I believe. But the other thing is, if we have currencies that the government can control, then they can turn it off. So literally, they own everything then. They can just turn that off and say, you know what? Hey, Sebastian, that money you just got, that was from some scammer named Tony. Now we're turning this off. Now you're gone. You don't have your money anymore. They evaporated it. And that is also why it presents a significant risk, is not only the government control, but also they can look at everything, right? And why should that be a thing? Why do we elect these people that can just spy on all of our stuff? That's not right. You know what I mean? As long as you're a good, ethical human being, a good citizen, do whatever you want to do. It should be the rules. That's how I look at it. We don't need all these people tracking us and telling us what to do. That's my perspective there.
Agree. Freedom matters, especially freedom in spending or having your money or having some physical cash or, digital cash that you cannot track. Also, it's a big thing with AI. I had on the show previously one of the European Parliament members who helped negotiate the AI Act. And I was very skeptical about that piece of paper until he told me that one of the main goals with that piece of regulation was preventing surveillance, preventing AI from being government sent, Deus ex machina into our lives and analyzing our faces the whole day in our workplace, at home, on the street. So I see this the same way as you. Being a libertarian myself, I don't want CBDCs to be a threat. I know in the US, Trump promise that will never be a reality. In Europe, the picture is a bit different. But I do hope, given European timeframes, I do hope it takes them long enough for it actually not to ever happen.
Yeah, it'll take about 15 years. Nothing moves fast. Moves at the speed of smell over there.
Probably, yes. Most likely, it will take 15 years. We can chill for a while. But I agree, freedom matters and CBDCs are not part of that.
No.
Question for you. You've been working for a while with clients in Web3 companies that probably have a whole lot of pain points and problems and goals they cannot accomplish because there are things they don't know. So what are the things these Web3 builders and founders don't know that you help them with? What are the most common mistakes they are making?
Sure. Well, the major one, as I said, I work in what's called tokenomics. So I'm really helping the founders with their economic model. So imagine you had a video game and now you're playing the game and there's a currency like Candy Crush has its own currency, right? Now we have to be able to figure out how that currency functions within the game, right? There's actually game designers that do that to make sure you're not releasing too much. There's actually a team of people that do that to make sure that economy of that game is built correctly. And that's what I do only for people that are building their own tokens, right? So the biggest challenges they have is usually they come up with these things on themselves. And now they move forward and they set themselves up in a very unsafe position. Like I'll mention, like for example, they might sell 20% of their supply to investors, right? Well, when you do that, now you have investors hold a ton of your token. Now they can sell in you for months and they can crush the entire price of your token if you're not careful, right? So now we might want to reduce that down to 10%, which is more of a normal thing. We also might want to apply a vesting schedule. So that way they don't get all the tokens at once. They don't just dump everything. And we can incentivize them to be there with us in the long term, right? So that's a big thing that I work with. There's all these nuances that builders need to pay attention to. And just that one thing alone could cause significant pain. I'll give you my own example. My own project, we grew 375x in 3 weeks. So if you put in $1,000, 3 weeks later, it was 375,000. Massive pump. Okay. Now, when it pumps up that high, right? Now we had a rewards mechanic for our community. So now when the token is growing that fast, if you don't think about how much you're giving out, your selling pressure also scales with that price. Okay. So we gave out $10.5 million worth of rewards. Okay. And so I'm sharing firsthand my own experience, and why I got into this area is because of challenges like this that I didn't realize. Who would have expected that you would go that high, that you would pump up that quickly and be at 200 million in 3 weeks? Nobody would have expected that. That's crazy to go that fast, right? But it did. And when it did, it broke, right? And so if I had to do things differently, I would have restructured the tokenomics. I would have thought about scale and how that affects my economy. I would have gone through all these details. And that's why I got into simulating economies and doing all the data analysis on that. Is now I can show them performance on their settings, even as it scales, and all these leaky buckets and poison pills and things like that. The other thing, and one of the most common things that I see, which also connects with you, is they don't do a great job of explaining what they do in a simple way. We see so many acronyms. They promote that. Like I had one client that promoted a video that was 2 minutes long, had no calls to action, nothing that thought about retention in the video with editing. It was literally just a stream, 2 minutes long. And the human mind is going to shut off on that. That is not a video that's actually optimized through editing, through calls to action to actually perform. Now get this, they paid an influencer to promote that, right? So not only did you make the video not right, now you paid someone probably 5-6 grand to promote it, right? And they got hundreds of thousands of impressions on that. But now, where are the results? There was no call to action at the end of the video. People didn't know what the project was about. They didn't know why they should even be interested in buying the token. So you largely blew a ton of value, and saying that, I believe we even talked about in one of our prep calls for this, is a confused mind will never buy, right? And this is true no matter where you go in business. And so, as you mentioned, I'm the founder of tokenomics.net. People in my market, as soon as they hear that, they know instantly what I do and what problem I solve. I don't even have to explain it now. And so this is the level that I'm going to, where I'm like, all right, I'm literally buying a domain to shrink that communication time span, because I know people don't have attentions. So everything I'm doing is designed for that. My content, try and make it no more than a minute to a minute and a half. So I know people will tune out on that if it gets longer. Sometimes it does because of the content, right? But again, it's all about attention. It's all about that message. So when someone hears that message, they become interested about that. That's really important to get them to take the action you want them to make. That's an important thing. But also, if it's not clear and someone isn't going to buy that, if someone isn't clear, how can they ever tell someone else about it? They can't, right? So now you lose all your word of mouth advertising as well. You lose everything with this. And so just the work that you're doing here is so important for people to pay attention to, because at scale, it really is about copywriting. It is about communication. It is about messaging. That's what we read and perceive as human beings. It's about imagery. All this stuff is really important, and projects don't get that right. They show up with bad quality. They show up with confusing communication, lots of jargon. No one knows what the hell they're building. No one sees the opportunity. No one understands this, and no one buys, right? And as we talked about in the beginning, if there are no buyers, you don't have a pump, and no one's going to buy that, right? And so it's all a game of getting people interested in the token. And that's always going to usually be from a point of speculation. Okay. Like in the example I always give, people say, Tony, you shouldn't say that. It's about utility. It should be. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's all bullshit. Let me tell you why. Because if you look at anything, Bitcoin, why am I holding Bitcoin? Because I want it to go up. I'm not using that. Why am I holding Ethereum? Because I want it to go up. I'm not using that, except for some small transactions. How about Filecoin? Let's look at that one. I'll bet today they have about $250 million in trading volume right now, okay, in their token. And I'll bet that probably less than 100,000 was used to store files in the past 24 hours. Look at that delta. So I just look at data point after data point after data point that tells me that it's a game of building a real product, but also marketing that, communicating it clearly, so speculators could also be interested, because again, that's what props up the price. That's what holds your liquidity and your market cap up. You don't understand that, you're going to go down. So that's also a really big mistake people make, is they just go towards users. They don't think about speculation and what really drives the value.
I love that you're saying this because in the end, what I do is positioning, and positioning is, in a nutshell, is the antidote to an over-communicated society. Meaning, people are bombarded. There's ads, everybody's posting on social media, everybody wants to be an influencer. So the moment you open any platform, there's at least 50 people wanting your attention. And for every 50 people wanting your attention, there are 200 companies that also want your attention.
Mm-hmm.
But you are also a human, so probably your family, your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, boyfriend, and your kids want your attention, and your
Yep.
chores also want your attention. So we need to be concise, we need to be clear. That's why I love how you call that, your name is tokenomics.net. Easy, immediate. You know, most business owners, when it comes to positioning, are scared because they go, oh my God, if I go too specific, it will turn off people. That's the whole point. People who are
Yeah.
not interested in tokenomics shouldn't be trying to contact you and booking time with you because it's a waste of your time and theirs. The whole
Yeah.
point is turning people off.
Yeah, if you're communicating to everyone, you're communicating to no one, right? That's a very common phrase I've heard a lot, right? And so it's about specificity. Just to give the people listening an example, I bring all my business off of LinkedIn. Okay, so I do videos on LinkedIn. I talk about this challenge. I talk about problems with projects, and I share my experience. I book 30 calls a month on average just off of LinkedIn content alone. That's it. And anyone who goes to my profile, anyone who goes to my website, the only outcome they have there is book a call. Far too people understand this simple approach, and they get really complicated. They do all this elaborate stuff, and really it's a game of simplicity, right? Because as you said, you're competing against all these different people that want your attention, or they just show up with very low energy, right? They don't have the right energy, and they don't draw people towards them. That's another thing is, your personal branding and who you are as a person also leads a lot of this. Just to call another mistake out is that's a lot of things I don't believe enough founders in general prioritize, or professionals, is their brand and who they are as a person. So for me, if I want to become known as a tokenomics expert, I don't even have to tell anyone I want that. All I do is produce a ton of content on tokenomics and share my thoughts, and people will believe that. Then when someone tells a friend, hey, I got a problem with tokenomics, oh, go see Tony. Here's his videos, here's his content, right? I come up in their mind right away. It's not rocket science. Most people just overcomplicate it.
We always want things to be complex, right?
Yeah.
And for the people listening, this is not a beginner mistake, by the way. This is not a founder's. This is mistakes I've seen in companies with 200 employees, with 2,000 employees. But also, if you take a look, the Super Bowl was this past weekend, right? You
Mm-hmm.
take a look at OpenAI ran an ad on the Super Bowl that nobody liked because if you actually watch the thing, it was pretty boring. It said nothing, and it seemed to have no goal besides telling us AI is the future. But people didn't care because they didn't give them a reason to care. It's not the job of people to care. It was the job of OpenAI to produce something that appealed to them somehow. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing you're doing, Tony, with your personal brand, which by the way is a great example because out of the people that do personal branding, probably 1% gets leads out of the content.
Mm-hmm.
So you are right there, and you are there because you are specific. If I want
Yep.
to learn about sales, I will not come into you because you will give me sales trainings, or you will not teach me cooking recipes. I will come to your profile because I'm interested in tokenomics. And if I need consulting on that, the call to action is right there. Just one thing I have to do because there's one thing you tell me to do.
Yep, exactly. And just to give another example, this past weekend, Sunday was the Super Bowl or whatever. I recorded 20 videos, for 21 actually, for a course on tokenomics. I paid 2,500 for someone to help me put together this really crazy advanced template. All right. I bought the domain on tokenomics.net. I'm paying someone right now to build blog content. My whole point is I'm reinvesting in that because when I push all that out, like that gets me leads when I'm literally asleep. It'll get me leads, right? And far too people, what they do is they try and hold all this stuff to themselves, almost like it's their secrets. The main thing is give it all away, and people will hire you to do the implementation. They don't know how to do the implementation. You could teach them all you want. Like, think about yourself in college. If you in the classes, it's like, you're there for how many weeks and weeks and weeks, and you come out of this, you're not able to do all that on your own in most cases. Like, I used to work in printing. The people that went to printing for 4 years didn't know what the hell they were doing when they came out of college, right? So when you think about it, education is really your way to prove that you know what you're talking about. It's also a way to, again, help people make the right decisions on what's better for them. So if you have a product and you make it simple and you educate on the product, Steve Jobs being a great example, 1,000 songs in your pocket, that's it. I don't need to understand any more than that. I want that thing, especially during that time when he had the Walkmans and all that kind of stuff. So all he had to say was that, right? People understood it instantly what it was, right? It all links back. So I feel this is such an important thing, is the simplicity in the communication, the messaging, the marketing, helping people understand whether you're for them or not. You don't have to be everything to everyone. There's people that try and book calls with me. I look at that and say, that isn't my client. I'll cancel the call. Why am I going to show up on a call if it's not for me, a fit? I'm not wasting my time on that. So when you are specific and you know what you solve for, now you can actually qualify, you can communicate, you can sell, and you can price your services a lot higher as well. Because now you're seen as kind of the expert in that area versus a jack of all trades. So you can sell your services significantly higher at a higher ticket rate. Well, why is this important when you're starting out? Because you're not going to get a whole lot of clients, right? So when I started out, I did a high ticket offer. And I said, I'm not going to just sell $1,000 offer to 100 people for 100 grand. I'm going to sell a $10,000 offer to 10 people. So I believe I can get 10. And all I did is I went and tried to get 10. That's how I literally have paid myself a salary after starting my initial consulting business after month 3. I've never gone without paying a salary, through just this simple approach,
Also, people who want to sell at volume, I love how this is turning into a business masterclass, but
Yeah.
people who want to sell at volume never understand that you need some infrastructure to do that. You alone
Yeah.
cannot handle 200 clients. You're one person with a solo business or some assistants. It's a way better use of your time for yourself and for your clients who are supposed to get quality from you to just charge higher because they get more from you. You're not charging higher because you're handsome, which you are, but it's not what they want.
No.
You're charging higher because you're giving them your time, your value, your
Yeah.
knowledge. And talking about knowledge, you touch upon something that's extremely important. People keep all the secrets to themselves like they're patents. They're not. I think that's the legacy of an old school mindset where knowledge was valuable and people had time to implement what they learned. When actually today, thanks to AI and even before that, thanks to Google, knowledge is worth pennies. Implementation is
Mm-hmm.
what matters because I had people who have taken my content, have tried to implement what I teach, and they still did a terrible job because you need somebody to do the implementation. They know the knowledge is not enough.
It's the taste. Even with AI, that's just what it is. So if you look at Rick Rubin as an example, he doesn't even know how to work any of the soundboards, nothing. And he's like one of the most famous guys in the world when it comes to music. Doesn't even know how to operate that. He literally lays down and listens, and that's what he has as a taste. So even in the age of AI, where we worry about AI taking all of our jobs, well, someone still needs to have an eye and a level of taste. And that's what I found is developing the taste takes a ton of time. And the reason why I would say that's true for everybody, myself, is I'll look back at work I did 2 years ago and I won't like it. And I believe if that's what you're doing, now your taste has improved. If I look back 2 years ago and I say that was phenomenal, I have no changes, well, I didn't grow anywhere. I grew nothing. I'm in the same mindset, right? So as I see it, that to me is also the most fundamental piece is you need the taste. And that's why you want to work with someone directly. Like in your example, you not only have the experience, but you have the taste to say that's a bad idea. That's a great idea. And you could also probably back that up with reasons of why they should do that and evidence. And that's also a frame that a lot of people don't have because they might have the knowledge, but they don't have the experience and they don't have the taste. And that takes time to build.
Yep. And AI will always have more knowledge than we do already now,
Yeah.
but it will never have the taste.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see it all the time. A lot of janky AI images that look like shit, and people are just putting them out there. Like that was a good designer. They wouldn't put that out there. That sucks. Like I own a creative agency. We use AI where it makes sense. We don't use it for copywriting and that kind of stuff because it just comes out like a robot. We use it to improve efficiencies, like to create a diagram. We'll use it like napkin.ai. We could feed in something, it creates a cool diagram. Then we'll use that as a blueprint with a design, and we saved ourselves some time, right? But I believe that's the thing that you'll ultimately need to apply at all this is a level of taste, and that's where I believe people that have the taste will always have a job. If you're just a knowledge robot or someone working or whatever, like AI, yes, it will eat your job. I believe that will be the case.
Yes, and there's taste to every profession. There's taste in being a hairdresser. There's taste in being a sales trainer, which is something I also do. Methodologies require taste and refinement to understand what works and what doesn't. And you are a, you have a creative agency too, so you know this better than anybody else. You have that vision to guide your clients into, hey, here's why this idea sucks, why this messaging is this 2-minute video is completely impossible to understand. That's taste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. And all that, by the way, is things that people spend money to promote as well, right? So when you look at it, it's not just, or they spend time trying to execute. So it's not just not that they don't know how to do it or it comes out wrong. They literally waste a whole bunch of time reading the wrong map. And they end up at the wrong spot, So it's like, so it actually has a chain of effect. And so as I always look at this, like I'm a guy where someone comes in and they're really good and they tell me a high price. I'll pay it if I think that they're phenomenal. I won't have to manage them, and I believe I'll get the outcome or the result. I will pay that time and time again, and I'll do that over and over again because I know that if I spend all my time going in the wrong direction or something I didn't know, well, then that's going to cause me, a lot of pain, and that's going to get me off of my goals, right? And so I'm also a big believer that it's a matter of not just the taste, but just knowing that, hey, you don't know this and your taste isn't developed. You might want to hire someone who does know this, that can guide you and can customize things to your business and make the right recommendations. That to me, people say AI will take over consultants. I'm not so sure. I think it can give you good ideas, but man, a consultant in your niche that has been there and done that and driven a lot of value, like I used to be in printing. I used to be a manufacturing consultant. I'm one of the top people in the world in printing right now today, probably knowledgeable. I've worked on the craziest projects. This one here, I converted this BMW right here to a printing press and we ran over on a racetrack, everything. So I've done like the craziest projects. Now, that being said, I can go into a printing company and look at what they're doing and say, hey, this is right, this is wrong. Here's where this could be made more efficient because I have that knowledge, right? And if that company listened to me, like many of them did when I would travel the US and do that, there were some weeks where I would save a company over $100,000 a year in value. And all I did was I talked to their team and I said, oh, you two people know how to set up this machine. Everyone else doesn't. Let's see how you're doing it because you're less wasteful than all these other ones. And now we did their method and we test that. Now the company saves 100 grand. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, but you had to be someone who knew how to ask the right questions, who knew to hunt down the right people who figured that out to apply that. If I didn't have the taste and the insights to get that, AI isn't going to get me there. It might in some respects, but it's not going to think about the people and engage them like that and think about pulling that kind of stuff out, right? It's just not because you're talking to a robot versus a human being. So I believe that is the point where as consultants and as providers, we'll probably have a job for a long while. If you're just a generalist, like a junior programmer, I think your lunch is going to get eaten pretty fast. And so what does that mean for you? Be exceptional in what you do so you can be the best. That's the thing you can control. Read books, study, practice, keep growing, right? So as I've talked today, I read a ton of books. I got books on copywriting. Got Robert Collier's letter book on my desk right here. It's like 1920 sales letters. Like, why am I reading that? Because I want to understand attention and copywriting and human psychology. That's why I'm reading that, and far too people don't do that. And then they're just going to get left behind. That's all right. That's the survival of the fittest.
It's harsh, but reality is if you get replaced by AI, there's a high chance you had it coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you just have
Yep.
to get good at what you do. Because even you mentioned that you're willing to pay any price for an expert if the expert is worth the price. That's just reality. I teach people all the time. Price objections are not are almost never about price.
No.
They're about doubt or confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, maybe they will be about price, but they're not. And when it comes to AI not getting replaced, it's the same thing. It's not about AI being better than humans. It's about you having to be good at your job so that AI becomes a way for you to augment yourself instead of something that can replace you. Because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if as a consultant, GPT can replace you, that's a bit embarrassing. And also, it shouldn't be the case.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you don't really have much of a moat. If something that's trained on a variety of data, can replace your job, and you're not really a specialist then in that case. And I think also a lot of us know what's coming by then. And what you mentioned about like if people don't buy, it's confusion, right? They don't see the value. Like in about another month, I'm going to spend $5,000 a quarter for a software. Okay, and that software is going to contact people. It's going to help me get leads and stuff. And I already know Harrison, our mutual friend, is using it right now. Is telling you about it right now. Some people might say, "Wow, that's a lot of money for software, right? I can get I could do manual for cheaper." Well, the way you might think about this is it's $5,000 a quarter. If I get even one customer, it pays for itself. You know what I mean? So the way a lot of people don't think about this is value, like you mentioned, they'll see a price and that's a price objection, right? And the other thing is, then why won't they buy? Because they don't see the value in it. In my example, I'm thinking about how many customers I can get with this. I'm already sold on it. I see I can get customers. I have someone telling me it's working. I have someone showing me it's working. If I don't do this, I'm stupid now, because if I have the money and I believe it will work, I'm stupid for not doing that, right? And so that's the position that the person should really be in, as a frame where, hey, if you don't do this, you're actually not that smart. Like I had someone today, I sent a follow-up email as an example for the people listening. What I laid out is I said, hey, here, I just wanted to check in with you. I know you said you would meet with your team early this week. I wanted to just make sure that you did that. And by the way, here are the challenges I see right now. If you don't go with me, this is what you're going to face as a founder in this space. And I laid it all out. And I showed him the statistics. And I also linked how on our call, I did a document with him and I showed him a challenge with his project. And I said, now it's even more of a challenge. In just 2.5 weeks, you lost $4 million of value of your token. It's gone down by 4 million. That's a lot in just 2.5 weeks. Do you want my help? I know how to fix this. Yes or no? And so now if someone doesn't do that, they're stupid. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that person's there. Maybe they're misinformed. Maybe they don't have the money. You get my point. But it's really a dumb move. If someone tells you how they could fix it and they prove they know how, and you still don't do it. You know?
And you still will say it though. If they don't have the money, they will find a way to tell you, hey, let's wait for this. It's really because I need to get it. And you also can tell that somebody's just being stupid. And again, what you just shared is a pro sales tip. I have a very similar tactic, which is telling the prospect the price of not working with you, because there is a price to inaction too. Like there is a price to getting somebody that's way cheaper. Okay, Tony, I gotta pay you all this money when I could get a guy from Fiverr for $500, and in which case you would say, go get him, lose another 4 million in value of your token, and then come back to me and pay me, because that's what probably will happen.
Yeah, I'm going to share something that I think this will simplify so much. And this is really how I think about everything is the only thing going on in my head isn't how much money I can make. It's how I can help my audience and my people. Okay. That's why I did the course. That's why I made the template. Like if I'm thinking about how much money I can make, I'm not coming up with the best ideas. I'm not thinking about the prospect and their pain and what challenges they go through. So when I reach out to that person and I tell them that, I'm actually trying to help that person. I'm not trying to do some underhanded tactic with some bullshit psychology. We're trying to trick them into going with me. I'm saying, like you said, this is the cost of not doing this. So you are aware of this. I'm ethically trying to make you aware of that. And I'm saying I can help you do this. Okay. And so now if you still don't do that, you know the risks, and I've communicated that. But that's why I'm reaching out. I'm not reaching out to say, hey, I'm just following up so I can get the sale. Many people will do that. I didn't do that. I said, hey, I'm actually trying to help you. And I believe if you don't do this, this will be some big challenges for you. And here's actual evidence of that with the numbers. So I didn't position it like BS. And I also showed that I'm actually trying to help this person. I'm showing them their challenges. This is something that far too few people get right, is in all their content, all their business, everything. They don't think solely about the customer and how they can help the customer and what their daily challenges are. Because truth be told, people only think about themselves in most cases. That's what they're thinking about, right? So if you're not thinking about them, as a person, and you're only thinking about yourself, you're doing it wrong. You want to think about them. That way, when you send something out, or you do a piece of content, or you do a lead magnet, or you do something really cool that helps people, it's done that way. And I have people that will literally message me and say, Tony, I can't believe this shit you give out. This is really valuable. Why do you do all this? Like, what are you getting out of this? Like, why do you do this? This is crazy. I said, it's not. So I built all my businesses off this, literally doing this. So that's what I get as a reward. I help people, and some of them will be helped and want to work with me. And that's how I grow my business. And I'm helping people, and I'm growing my sales. My free template that I put out of tokenomics that I did about a year ago, over 1,500 free downloads, and I've only promoted it 3 times. If you search tokenomics template, it's the number 3 position on Google. Comes in, people book on that, and I watch my business in there. The leads come in, and a lot of people will go in there and work with me. It's simple. Just think about what your customers need and do it. It's not complicated.
And here we go back to being a good expert at what you do, because the only way for you to think about what they need is to know what they need, but also to know how to solve it. And that's where having the skills and putting in the effort comes into place, because if there is something you cannot fake, it's skills in the end.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Listen, Tony, we filled the full 1 hour and a little bit more, so I'm going to be mindful of your time and call it a day. I want to thank you for being here. It was a crazy good episode. I learned a lot, took a page full of notes, Is there anything you want to share before we go? And please tell people where to find you.
Yeah, last thing before I go is don't believe all you hear in crypto. It's an amazing space with a lot of amazing founders and builders that are creating incredible technology. So pay attention to it. You'll see it'll continue to expand. It'll be everywhere. Those of you that want to reach me, you can go to tokenomics.net, or you can just search Tony Drummond on LinkedIn. I do a lot of content there, and many people follow me there. Do a little bit on X, but not a lot lately. And yeah, you guys can check in with me there. I have tokenomics.net as my site. My creative agency is Convert. It's conv3rt.net. And you can go there and you can check me out there if you'd like as well. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate that. And I enjoyed my time here.
I'm happy you did. People, this was the Tech of Tomorrow podcast with Sebastian Hidalgo and Tony Drummond. I am Sebastian Hidalgo. Please subscribe, follow, like, support the show. Helps a lot. I love doing this. I love talking to new people. Tony, thanks again. And everybody, I will see you in the next episode.